Shrink the Nation is a podcast for thoughtful, informed adults, preferably with a pour in hand. The views and opinions expressed on the show are those of the hosts and guests only, and do not reflect the views of any employers, institutions, licensing boards, government agencies, bourbon distilleries, or family members, especially our family members. They've asked us to be very clear about that. This show is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing said here should be taken as medical, psychiatric, legal, or professional advice. If you're in crisis, call a professional. If you're mad at something we said, we suggest journaling or emailing us with civility. We're here to challenge ideas, not diagnose strangers. We're clinicians, not your clinicians, and we have the bourbon to prove it. Let's go. Welcome back to Shrink the Nation. Tonight we're tackling a cultural shift that's been buzzing everywhere, from boardrooms to TikTok feeds: girl boss burnout. For the last decade, the girl boss mantra told women to hustle harder, climb higher, and break every glass ceiling in sight. But lately, we're seeing a countercurrent. Women leaning out, flirting with the soft life, the stay-at-home girlfriend aesthetic, and even the trad wife revival. So what's going on here? Is this empowerment evolving or exhaustion taking over? Is it liberation from toxic hustle culture or a retreat back into old patterns wrapped in new hashtags? We've got Allison with us tonight, and let's be honest, Robbie and I are lucky she's here because this isn't just about economics and psychology. It's about lived experience, about what it actually feels like to carry invisible labor, perfectionism, and burnout while being told to, quote, have it all. We'll break down the psych side, burnout, perfectionism, and identity fatigue. We'll look at how culture and algorithms are pushing these narratives. And most importantly, we'll ask, what's real choice? What's just survival strategy? And what's the cost to women and to society when the hustle burns out? So pour a glass, settle in, and get ready for a conversation that's going to be as real as it gets. First, I'm David, got my 20 plus in the military. I've got my tin cup bourbon, the mash bill. Robbie, I know you're wondering. It's approximately 2/3 corn, 1/3 rye, plus a splash of malted barley, but apparently that translates to about 4% malted barley. So how that's a splash, I don't know. That's what it's being called. I've been reminded by my spouse that multiple times throughout her life, she's been approached by others asking how the hell does she stay with somebody with such a terribly dry sense of humor. So just a warning to everybody, if you haven't figured it out by now, I have that. So
yeah,
Robbie, you're up.
You should probably have a glass of water ready so you can tolerate the dryness of David. It's like saltine crackers. It's rough. Yeah, hey, it's Rob, 25-ish years of psychiatry and 30 years in the military. I'm doing horse soldiers this evening because it's expensive bourbons I've bought in a long, long time, so I'm meeting it out very judiciously. And it is a wheated bourbon, so 70 corn, 20 wheat, and 10 barley. And it's lovely.
Sounds awesome.
I'm Allison, have 20-something, maybe, plus or minus years of psychiatry experience, and I am drinking Estro Rage Max, which I think we talked about on the Testo Rage Max episode, where it's just anger at the patriarchy and some liquid IV.
Do we have to drink now? Is that
Yeah, that's the thing.
count?
Every time.
Whenever you say patriarchy or bring up,
Feminist
is that the rule?
idea?
A feminist? Okay. Well, drink.
Let's not go that far. We'll be comatose just every time the patriarchy comes up. How about that?
Okay. Well, does that still count though?
I mean, yeah, spontaneously.
Yeah,
It's early. It's early in the show. We might as well. Yeah. Let's go.
Yeah. I do want to thank Allison for being with us this evening because the invisible workload that she's taking on in functioning as my conscience in this topic, I appreciate it. She's not getting paid for it. No credit, really. It's just the work that she's doing.
And I'm here to axe grind because last episode you said some pretty hurtful things about the X-Files, and I just have to be here to represent that the X-Files is a fantastic show that actually holds up pretty good.
Okay. I mean, I'm going to accept that with the spirit I think that you're giving it and agree that.
And as one of our OG girl bosses, Scully, there's an increase in girls going into STEM, and it's called the Dana Scully effect.
No kidding.
Yeah. It's like for real. She inspired girls and women to go into STEM fields.
Well, downstream consequences that I had not considered. Color me surprised and ashamed of myself.
Yeah, definitely.
We're going to call that the Robbie effect.
Yeah.
Being both surprised and ashamed of oneself for actions taken, words spoken, or things not considered.
That is the psychodynamic story in my life that has just been replicated. Repetition compulsion, folks, it's real. It's a hell of a drug. To get this started, I like to play historian, even though I'm not one. I want to lay the groundwork historically, and it's just the way I build mental models for myself. I have to understand where something comes from in order to get there. And I realize gender issues certainly go beyond the time frame I'm going to talk about. It's not like it started in 1941 or 2. But when I trace the course of particularly women in the workforce, World War II was a turning point, and there was a rationale behind it. All the guys got sent overseas to fight a war, left lots of industrial jobs. We were functioning as the arsenal of democracy. So they asked women to step up. Rosie the Riveter, they wanted women to come into that workforce. And then when the men came home, surprise, surprise, a lot of women, having had a taste of some independence and the ability to make their own money, didn't want to give that up. And if we trace it back, that's often references as first generation. Then we fast forward into the late 70s, early 80s. There was the beginning of socioeconomic rumbling. And we saw a transition in terms of the jobs. So I'm going to harken back to the movie Mr. Mom. I'm sure everybody knows it really well. 1982. Michael Keaton, who his co-star was, it absolutely captures that moment, or as Keith would say, the zeitgeist. And what it portrays is a man who works in the auto industry, who loses his job because of downsizing, and his wife, who is everyone was in advertising, it seems, in all the movies back then. But she was in advertising, she got a job, and it was this comedic flipping of gender roles. And of course, he was completely ill-equipped, and he just couldn't keep up, and he made a mess of everything. As movies often do, the arc was he got a handle on it. She decided, even though she was very successful, she decided she'd rather be home. He magically gets his job back. So it's not exactly a study in equality, but it is kind of a funny take on this. That's often considered the second generation. And this is sort of the baby boomer generation that's coming into professional life. And it really does depict the burden of the home, the childcare burden. And then when we look at the third generation, it was women continuing on this trend into the workforce and particularly professional type positions. But what we've lost, or what never happened, was a shift on the home front. So there was a quote, and I can't find who said this quote, but battle for equality was not lost in the boardroom. It was lost at the table. Does that resonate with you, Allison?
You not saying spoiler alert before ruining the ending to Mr. Mom for everybody out there who clearly was going to rent it tonight.
It's also Mr. Doubtfire erasure is what it is.
The fact that you couldn't remember Terry Garr is just awful.
Terry Garr. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was kicking myself.
I mean, you should be. Typical man.
Yeah, I mean, like the example that comes to mind immediately is who gets the phone call when kids are sick at school. And it's always the first parent listed, I guess. That's what my school tells me. And then when you change that around, then it's the mom, even though she's the second person listed for other reasons. So like the mom is just always on the hook for everything. In heteronormative.
Nate Bargatze has a joke where he talked about getting a call from his children's school. And he says, when do you ever call the dad first? Unless there are two dads on the form, you should never call the dad first. And he says, sure, yeah, I'll come pick her up. If you just tell me what school she's at, that'd be great. Come by and get her today. And the truth is, I've thought that exact thing, unfortunately, every time my kid's school calls. I'm thinking, why are they calling me? I'm not even sure where they go.
You should try. You should tell them.
You're just Google mapping school.
Yeah.
And then trying to make a guess.
Just guessing. Driving around.
Yeah.
So we get these messages that we have to be a great parent. And those are usually internalized because most people want to do a good job at the thing that they love, and B, that they're supposed to be good at.
Are you talking about
And
your
then
kids?
just
Loving your children?
Yeah, like you should love them.
Can you describe to us what that's like?
Well, like how to care for someone?
No, just loving them enough to want to do a good job.
So this is a remedial class for men on how to take care of people. So that's like the first you have to notice. So maybe that might be part of it, is that a mom might actually notice when something's wrong preemptively before being told about it. But like all of those expectations are exhausting. So even if personally I can navigate some of them and manage to do a fair division of labor, society doesn't expect and doesn't act in accordance with my fair division of labor in my own home and will still call me, even though I'm the one busy at work.
Are you number 2 on the list at school, or you're the number 1 parent to contact?
Someone from the school called and I had to request, hey, please put a note in there that I'm not the first person to call. Just to shake things up a little, just to be a little difficult. And that's absolutely how it feels. Those kinds of requests are not met with, oh, great, sure, yeah, no problem. It's a, oh. So that it's just unconscious, immediate disbelief or pushback that once you're attuned to it, you can pick up on it.
Now, if we take the girl boss component out of this, I have a question. Something that I was struck by is a difference in my personal experience of becoming a parent versus my son's mother's experience. What I was absolutely stunned by was my male peers in no fashion or form judged me for any choice I made in relationship to my child and taking care of my child and how I deemed it appropriate to take care of my child. And, I could be very self-effacing about it, make jokes about it when in fact I took it very seriously. And contrary to David's statement, I love my child very, very much and wanted to do a good job as a parent, but no one
Wait, you did this on purpose?
I did. It was
We have it recorded.
conscious, but no one judged me in any way other than
Not out loud.
yeah, well, maybe. Yeah, I'm sure some women judge me, but my male peers. What I was struck by was just how the experience for a mom was different. There was a lot of mom judgment and there was a lot of inter-mom competition and, back and forth. And it was mostly social media driven. And it was an early form of social media. It would have been Facebook or something like that.
Friendster? Is that
MySpace.
Yeah, Friendster. Yeah, something like that.
Fucking
But
Tom.
it was these crazy expectations about how you were supposed to, put headphones on your belly and play Bach and organic everything. And if you didn't breastfeed until they were 7, you were failing them and they were going to get some terrible infection and die. It was this constant competition as to who's the better mom. And it really was striking. Is that a thing or did I misperceive it?
No, I think those expectations societally are really profoundly impactful. The mom competition is also people externalizing all of their internal anxiety for their choices. And they're working so hard. And sometimes you're working so hard that it bubbles over onto the person next to you. So it might be like actual just competition, but I think more it's about a shared anxiety of, am I doing this well enough? I'm going to mess this baby up even before they're born. I'm gaining too much weight. I'm not gaining weight. I didn't give up caffeine. I can't stop smoking. Like those kinds of things are just really tough. I mean, I also quit caffeine and I did not smoke. So just for the record, I can't give it up. Even now, I can't let you all think that I was drinking and smoking. Also, I did not drink alcohol.
Methinks doth protest too much.
Yeah, it's true. I was just out in the streets.
Yeah.
Can't leave that in.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Allison. We know that was difficult.
Yeah, that was my perception, actually, is one I was struck by. The external observer would think, gosh, they're just being so mean to each other. And it wasn't like direct. It was these kind of sideways, like, oh, well, this is what I do. And it was always one better. It was always one thing
You're not
better.
using cloth diapers?
Exactly. Yeah, it was that kind of thing.
I don't know that it's just women. American culture puts so much of that onto mom. An example, my kiddo is reading a book for class right now. It's a really tragic story about some kids and their really horrible mother that comes back. And it's shocking. The more surprising part is it's just detailing a parent who has issues with addiction and substance, who essentially drops off their kids with grandma and takes off for several years and then comes back. And the realization that it's mom doing it is the odd thing, the surprise. It's not, well, dad wasn't around. Big deal because dad wasn't there. But mom doing it is the gut-wrenching, difficult part of the story, of which we don't lay any of that on dad. Dads are absentee or have issues. We're like, dad's not around. But when mom has no interest in being a parent, it's just unheard of, worthy of a scholastic book. To be read to your sixth graders and traumatize them.
There's a joke that I read. The way you know that moms or wives do so much extra work in a family is that all of us have heard about a dad who has a secret second family, but you have never heard about a mom who has a secret second family. It exactly shows that moms do so much work that they can't secretly have some other family do.
For anybody out there listening, how do you know that your mom is really not just going off to her secret second family instead of work?
Quote unquote. Do the air quotes.
Everyone's going to wonder now, is she really going to work, or is it just her secret second family that she spends all day with?
You just struck on this, Allison. Externally, I was struck by how mean it felt women were being to one another. As I experienced it, though, it was clearly anxiety driven. There was a certain performance based, I'm doing a good job, because they want to do a good job desperately, but they were transferring that on one another. And that was the competition, I guess. This does happen to dads, by the way, not with our little ones, but it starts happening to dads when they get to a sport age. There are these unspoken judgments about how we're training our children to engage in sports. Go figure, it's a noticeable thing. And there's these sort of judgments if your child's not engaged in a sport that come along surprisingly. But it is very differently, or very different. You know, like when a guy says, I pay my child support, they're actually given credit for that, when in fact you can't take credit for shit you're supposed to do. You don't get bonus points to do the right thing.
I have a hard time putting those two things into the same exact category. I think living vicariously through your kids and their sport is not necessarily the same thing as feeling an internal pressure to be a good parent and be a mother and do all those things that moms do, especially early on.
Well, psychodynamically, I think that the drive's the same, that to those people who are living vicariously through their child, the judgment is there. I think what it strikes at is how many people are living vicariously through their child. You know, how children have to bear the projections of their parents and be the one who enacts their unlived life. And it's that common. I think psychodynamically, it's actually the same place, but you're right. Functionally, or the scope of it is different.
I just don't see the two things. Pushing your kids through a sport so that you can experience that because you failed to is not necessarily the same as the pressure that a woman might have early on. I would assume. I don't know that they're the same. And I guess maybe Allison can weigh in a little bit better than me on the pressure, internal pressures, but I think they are.
I wasn't equating them. I was talking more just about the transference and that projection that, the fundamental drive is different. The drive to be a good mom has been enculturated from the time a little girl tiny, I guess, when she's given a baby doll and whatever. But there is a corollary among men. It's just not as relevant and it's not as overwhelming. I mean, I saw it as overwhelming when my child was small, the mommy competition. Now, Allison, is the problem that women are more perfectionistic?
I don't know how the three of us could answer that. I do think that girls are very often held to a higher standard than boys are. If we're in our routine American upbringing, boys do get in trouble more, but there are so much more allowances made, like boys will be boys. Those kinds of things that are just built in that says boys are allowed to be a little bit more rowdy, rambunctious, and not pay attention in class. Girls are held to a different standard with that. And it might be to boys' detriment that they aren't encouraged to learn emotional regulation, to be able to sit and quietly listen and participate in a way that's healthy and conducive to society. I read this really interesting study. It's probably, 10 years old. And I may have talked about it before, but so a study looked at punishments for male and female lawyers, and they reviewed all of a certain state's judgments against lawyers. And for the same infractions, female lawyers were punished more harshly than male lawyers were. Now, fewer female lawyers did stuff that was wrong, but the ones who did things wrong were punished more harshly for the exact same infractions than their male counterparts. So women are punished more harshly.
You're speaking to the phenomenon that The Simpsons called out like 20 years ago, right? With the judge on there, the whole boys will be boys phenomenon of if a boy does it, it's seen as, well, boys will be boys. But if a woman does the exact same thing, it's so out of character that you're more surprised by it, which is exactly what I was saying earlier with that book. It was, well, if a dad's a shitty parent, whatever, dads are shitty parents all the time, no big deal. But when a mom's a shitty parent, she takes off on her kids. That's a big, hairy deal. I think society puts more onto women and has a much higher expectation. I do think perfectionism plays a role, but I don't think on an individualistic level of, women are running around saying, I have to be perfect. The expectation is you can work, but only if you keep doing all the rest of the things that you were doing or we expect you to do, i.e. taking care of your family, having kids, and that you do it all perfectly. We will allow you into this other space that you weren't previously in, but you got to be perfect at doing it. And I do think that's where perfectionism plays that role, but it's not internal. It's more externally placed perfectionism. And then when you mess up, it's punished harsher because you should have done better. You should have known better, lady.
I guess what I was trying to build an arc toward is that the girl boss phenomena, that yet again, a scenario very similar to what happens between moms, in which women are setting standards. And, I'm not saying that they necessarily are judging one another harshly, but they're self-judging. And there does seem to be something unique there that is, and I'm not saying men certainly have desires and can feel like they're less than and all those sorts of things. I'm not saying that's totally unique. But it feels to me like this girl boss phenomena was a function of the fact that our capitalistic economy really liked having double earners. It really liked having the extra income potential, more consumers with more dollars to spend. And most of our economy is driven on a growth factor. And if you do not expand who's spending money, you can't continue to grow indefinitely. So that ended up happening. More women go into the workforce. There's more dual income families because of economic necessity. What didn't happen was any change in the equity in the household, the expectations in the household. And I'm wondering if the girl boss thing was actually this sort of a coping mechanism to sustain this, that rather than looking at it systemically and saying, this is just not a sustainable situation, that we cannot continue this. The economy requires it. There's all these forces that drive it. Now women are in this position. And rather than saying, look, we need equity in the household, they really kind of turned inward. They began projecting this girl boss thing where if you just get a really pretty planner and you do it better, if you just hustle more, it would be okay. And then it became a thing. It became a thing that...
So the girl boss isn't really for moms. The girl boss is usually single women who don't have to balance home, work, and the rest of life. So the girl boss is a single late 20s person. The slide into trad wife is realizing that you cannot keep being a girl boss when you have either your aging parents or your young dependents who need you to take care of them. So something's got to give. And I think a lot of women find that out in perimenopause when everything just gets unmasked and when it's just too much. With being a sandwich generation person, like something has got to give. And maybe that's the job. And then I stay at home and do a soft life.
Are we giving too much credit with the hashtag girl boss thing? This came out in the 2010s, right? This is something that was popularized.
The lady who started Nasty Gal, whatever her company was called Nasty Gal. She wrote a book called Girl Boss. We can't credit her with coming up with Girl Boss. It existed prior to, but she definitely popularized it.
But yes, the hashtag Girl Boss became a thing through social media, which is, as we said before, it's a curated life. It's a snapshot of not even necessarily reality that's being presented as if it were reality in a format that people look at and say, hey, why not me? Why can't I do this? What they find out with time is that because it's not fucking real, you can't do this because it's made up, at least to do it perfectly in the way that they're presenting it. It's just the same reason why you can't just vacation in Tahiti and on beautiful beaches all the time and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on vacations if you don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend on vacations. It's a fallacy created. I'm not even sure it's created to empower women. I think it's created to enrich the people who are getting rich off of being influencers. I mean, essentially, but we're seeing the exact same phenomenon Yes, that's all. Exactly. It is the same exact
It's merch.
thing. It is. It's clicks. It's time in front of people's eyes that they're looking at and fantasizing about and saying, why can't I do this? And then trying to do it, and unfortunately failing miserably because it's not real. Then falling back into now the soft life and all these other things, which ironically are women influencers who are saying, look, I'm sitting around doing nothing and life is wonderful and he's taking care of me. While you're making hundreds of thousands of fucking dollars selling everybody on this idea that you're not doing anything, except that you're making money selling people, right? Like you are working. What you're doing is you're selling a lie. It's just commercialism wrapped up in a different way. It's not magazines. Girl Boss is just the new version of a new way to make women feel horrible about themselves. And I don't think it's intended to make you feel bad. I think it's intended to sell you products. It just has the horrible side effect of making you feel bad. And now we have new ones.
We
I
buy
don't think
more
so.
when we feel bad. There's like so much research that goes into when we are in a vulnerable position, we're much more likely to buy a new mascara, or we're more likely to do that. David, it's not soft life #SoftLifeGirl's fault that like your Testo Rage Max sponsorship really hasn't taken off like you wanted.
No,
I
we
think
need to
it
get
is.
You don't
her
get
on there. What we need to do is
Right.
get that Estro Rage Max going.
Yeah, no doubt.
What would be a good flavor for that?
Oh,
Bourbon
no,
Bull
it
Sweat
would.
isn't
it's
gonna fly for
it's
estrogen. And
it's Tears of the Patriarchy is like it's a famous
drink. Oh,
like
Tears of the
a
Patriarchy.
mug. I have a mug that says that.
I think if lavender's in it, it will sell. I think as long as there's some lavender,
No, I think it's just rage. It's just this. It's the same. It's just rage.
just rage.
I guess going backwards a bit to the girl boss thing, and I agree with you. It definitely started with women who were CEO types that did end up trying to sell, you can have it all. You can have the perfect marriage and the perfect kids and the perfect occupation. And you can do it all. It just comes down to better organization. It's a money-making scheme. And it reminds me of, do you guys remember Amway? Does that even exist anymore?
They have rebranded.
Okay.
They go by something else.
Yeah, there's different pyramid schemes all the time.
Okay, it's a pyramid scheme. Amway basically said, hey, you can be your own boss. You can sell these products. I think they initially started with like vitamins and then they went crazy on products. What really happens in Amway is that they make money off the people they're selling the dream to. It wasn't selling these products. They didn't make money selling their products. They made money selling the dream and having people come to these conferences and learn how to be a better seller and how to do this and that off the people that they were convincing that they were smarter and they were better. They could do more. And that was their target audience, folks that they brought in. And this feels very much like that, like a pyramid scheme. Folks who are sitting at the top of that pyramid selling something to the folks who are pulled in because they see this curated perfect life that in this case it's women, and obviously men do this in a different way, but they see this curated life and they get pulled in, and then they're what these people are making money off of. They're clicks, selling the merch, convincing them that they need the lavender scented schedule book, that they should drink Estro Rage. Tears of disappointment would be how I would probably assume it tastes like, and the patriarchy. So what we're looking at is a pyramid scheme that takes advantage of the people who are buying into the curated life.
The move toward traditionalism and conservative values is huge in the soft life, bad wife area. So this idea that women are withdrawing from public life and are back concentrating on just the home life, that is such a part of traditional values that women should not be seen or active outside of the home, that they should be focusing on their home life and dependent on their spouses to provide for them, which makes women so much more vulnerable. And it rolls back so much of the hard work that many feminists have done for years, especially now where the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission was just in January this year given a directive to stop investigating claims alleging sexual orientation and gender-based discrimination. So it's just really tough. All of those protections are being rolled back. It's terrifying how child labor is now going to be the answer to how we need more workers, and having people pregnant earlier, having more children, which is also part of these traditional values. It's using people to produce more workers for our people factories, I guess.
Well, get on that. We need more people.
What, me?
Yes.
I've done my part.
You've
I've
done
done
your
my
part.
part.
I've contributed to the population. The way this is playing out, I'm glad, because it plays into what our perspective on when we started Shrink the Nation is that there are psychodynamic factors that end up playing into real life politics. And I guess the argument I'm going to make right now, and I realize there is a long-term sociologic drive that indoctrinates boys and girls and establishes traditional roles, etc. But the argument I'm going to make right now is that we are in a position at a point in time in which our country is experiencing some significant cultural and economic challenges. And that during these times of uncertainty, some of the psychological factors we experience on the individual basis ends up translating into politics. I don't believe these quote unquote soft wives or trad wives probably really buy all the tradition. At their core, they feel this. I think it's a psychological defense mechanism to excuse it, to explain it, that there's something that they're uncomfortable with. And then, of course, social media grabs it and it becomes something else and something bigger. But I think this is a coping mechanism. I think this has more to do with a discomfort in feeling like they're failing. They have failed to be a girl boss. So I'm going to fall back to being a trad wife or a soft whatever. Soft girl, whatever. What are they? Soft what?
Soft life.
Soft life.
Soft life. All right.
Soft
right.
boy is a whole different episode.
Yeah. That is actually causing a shift politically.
So one of the things, though, that you have to really understand or call attention to is that the way social media algorithms work and reward content is through extremes. When you have something like Girl Boss that gets really saturated and viewed heavily, what's going to get rewarded after that is when there is a shift to another extreme. The people who were very successful in selling the girl boss lifestyle were now the same ones who were selling the soft life on social media as well. And saying, well, now that I've burned out on this, now I'm doing this. It's the extreme shift being rewarded through the algorithm. In order to make money, you need to be unique, appealing to something different. The ability to make money off of it goes downhill. And so what do? You go to the other extreme and you come up with something new, which is soft life. It is unfortunately the same people who are now saying, look, do this now. But it's so different.
The top tier's taking advantage of everyone else. Are you telling me that? That's impossible.
The individual's psychodynamics plays upon their anxieties. It plays upon their feelings. I need to be like what is popular, this amazing looking life. I want that. I don't think the psychodynamics shifted it. I think people who were very savvy said, I'm not making what I used to be making selling this product. So I'm going to go and sell the opposite of that product because nobody's selling that. And I was really popular here, and I'm going to bring over my perspective that does play at an individual level. It plays upon their heartstrings. It's not like that person was more.
I guess what my point was that the top of the pyramid can shift its focus. The bottom of the pyramid is still caught. So Amway can sell something new, but the folks who are tied into Amway are still caught in the same cycle of being a revenue source. The problem is, in order to explain that to themselves, they have to then convince themselves that whatever the top of the tier is selling is worth buying into. And right now, if we're selling trad wives, if we're selling soft core, soft.
That's not it either, Rob.
Stop calling it softcore.
Stop calling it the wrong soft.
It's very much like Amway says companies are now selling this. We need to come up with a new product to keep our people engaged. And they just come up with another product. And then they're just bringing their people over. And the people are like, ooh, something new. You know what it reminds me of is in the movie WALL-E, when all the people are on the boat and they're like, ooh, now red. And then everyone just looks at it and they're like, red, that sounds, and they just like click the button. And then everyone is just all of a sudden they go from like blue to red or whatever. That's exactly how it is. I don't know that the change is so complex that it was like, well, you know, this whole girl boss thing, it's really run its course. And no, I think we're not really making the money. We're not getting the views that we used to be getting. We need to come up with something new. And these are the people that are selling it, and they're going to sell us something new. And there's this new one we're going to do.
Both extremes are wrong.
Tradwife one, as Allison was calling out, is definitely a push from the conservative side because it is very deeply entrenched with Christian nationalism principles. But the soft life is just, we need a red product now because we're saturated on blue. Let's sell people on red today. And it worked. And what's the next one going to be? Maybe that's what we should be predicting is what's the next one going to be?
How we can disengage from that cycle.
Disengage, yes. How can we disengage?
No, I think we should predict the next one. What's the next?
Well, yeah, buy our stuff. Smash the like button.
Subscribe and we'll share.
Right.
Subscribers only feed.
Hit that subscribe button. Allison's going to teach us the new best way to be a mom.
Hey, it's Rob from Shrink the Nation. As my friend David so eloquently states at the beginning of the show, we are clinicians, but we're not your clinician. We love to joke around and dive into the tough topics, but there's something really important we need to say. If you're struggling with your mental health or facing substance use issues, we want you to know you're not alone. We have dedicated our professional careers to mental health, and we care deeply about it. It's okay to ask for help. Reaching out to a professional in your area could be the first step toward feeling better. Don't wait. There's support out there, and it works. Please take that first step. We want you to be well. Now let's get back to the show. Oh, and don't tell David I said he was eloquent. He'll be insufferable.
So I existed in medicine before the shift in more women doctors than men, which happened right around 2000, the year that more women were graduating from medical school than men. It was the first year ever. And that's the year I graduated from medical school. I have existed in the world that was pre-predominance women. It was the old school male docs, the way the system was, the way it worked. And then I have seen the shifts in the work environment since women are predominant in the field. And I have to say, I like the shift. I like the change. It has made the work environment so much nicer. There's much more thought to work-life balance. It's not perfect by any means. I'm certainly not making the argument women have it easy. I'm not saying that. They've got the soft life. No.
Sounds like you're saying it.
It has had a very positive effect that when I was young in the field, the expectation was you work in the clinic, you work in the inpatient unit, you do call at night, you cover weekends. One person did it all. And that was the expectation. As women have come in, it has shifted dramatically. Call is a thing of the past now. It doesn't really happen. You hire somebody to do that shift. You don't have 10 different jobs. There was a hustle culture among particularly male physicians, and we prioritize suffering. The men docs would compare their work schedules and judge you harshly if you were not working 3 or 4 jobs and doing all these things, and that's shifted. And I really appreciate that.
I think that also just shows how much unpaid labor women were probably doing for those male physicians then. There's just so much that has to get done for even one person or a couple to run doctor's appointments, who is going to be there when the new dishwasher gets installed. All of our innovations that should have made housework easier, we still spend a lot of time doing those kinds of household chores. I have an off-topic thing. I know, it's so surprising. This is on unpaid labor. A couple years ago, a guy, what's his name? Bruce Holsinger?
Campbell.
No, not Bruce Campbell. I do love all the Evil Dead movies. We can discuss them at a later date. No, so Bruce Holsinger on a Twitter thread just started publishing all these instances of women who had typed up their husband's manuscript. And I don't even know if it functionally exists anymore on Twitter or if it's been purged, but it's called #thanks4typing. And he lists all the ways that these women did so much work. Collating, editing, actually typing up the manuscripts from their handwritten legal pads. And it's just shocking. They get like a thanks to my wife for, and that's it. They're not credited as a co-author, even when clearly they should have been credited as a co-author. Anyway, that one's a really interesting one if you would like to read it.
So statistics, and as we know, they're lies, damn lies, and statistics. Often attributed to Mark Twain. I'm not entirely sure he actually said that, but that's my quote for the episode.
Drink to your fake
Allison,
quote.
what would you estimate is the differential in a dual income household in this unpaid labor. Male versus female, what do you think the statistics come out as?
Like percentages? I
Or
would say
hours, whatever, however you want to.
65, 35. I can't do
Relatively close. Yeah, it's actually pretty close. That women, on average, are average 3 hours per day of additional unpaid labor. Men average 2. So I thought, wow, that's not as off as I expected. But then I did the math in terms of the week, that women basically are working an extra day of unpaid labor per week as compared to men. And it was much more striking to me when I thought of it in those terms. And there is actually a trend in the positive that men are doing more over time.
Yeah, just to note, I installed my own dishwasher. Thank you.
Because you're a manly man. You drank Testo Rage, bourbon, installed it, and then fixed it 7 times because you did such a piss poor job the first time around.
Maybe.
I have a great story about the last time I installed a dishwasher, but I'm not going to tell it because it ended up in a relatively crisis level flood. Did a hell of a job.
No.
I've never done that.
I did a good job. It worked for about 2 weeks, and then the flood came.
Never done that.
We have another number. The July jobs data came out to talk about intersectionality, meaning like this is your opportunity to drink, where people of color and women, and if you're a woman of color, things then impact you in a compounding kind of way. That the most recent jobs data is that 350,000 Black women left the workforce. And this made headline news, at least in my algorithm. Fortune magazine called it a strategic failure. And there are so many downstream effects. Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in the US. So we're just losing all of this innovation by having this many Black women leave the workforce. And I think the same number, it's like 30 something white men joined back in the workforce. So it's shocking numbers to me.
30 something thousand?
I think, yeah. Here, let me Google it.
If it was just 30, I think that probably wouldn't be a shocking number.
30 men.
350,000 women left. Yeah, but 30 guys started, so we're good. That 30 guys took over the 350,000.
Yeah.
Installing dishwashers wrong all day.
Every day. As long as they're drinking the Testo Rage Max, I don't care what they do. Just buy the Testo Rage.
Okay, don't quote me on the 30,000 number. I cannot find it now. But
Okay.
the 350,000 number.
That is a significant thing that's worth even pondering, because with these shifts, the downstream consequences, which are yet to come and will come, we'll feel these for a long, long time. So many of the alterations that I've seen just recently that has de-emphasized everything from research to making the U.S. less appealing to incoming students, et cetera, those all have, and then this statistic, which showing women of color specifically dropping out of the workforce, significant downstream consequences that we will feel.
My live fact checking, can I debunk my 30,000 men
You
entering
can.
the workforce? I
Yes.
just checked. It's not true.
You debunked yourself.
I debunked myself.
The double work that Allison is doing in very woman fashion, not only the unpaid labor that we're seeing as we talk.
A very womanly thing she just did was that she debunked herself. She called herself out on being wrong, which, what was that? I don't even understand what you just did.
I didn't want to
You
pass
made up-
along misinformation.
Made up a statistic and then corrected yourself. I don't understand. How not man of you.
That's true. I should have just doubled down.
What are we thinking? Instead of tradwife, what do you think about hashtag crockpot couture? Do we think maybe that's next?
We're trying to get out ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I think we should
Don't
come up
think
with the next one.
Crock pot is it.
Hashtag snackwife supreme.
No, you guys. Okay. If you get a sponsor, it has to be the Zojirushi rice cooker. You push play on your rice cooker, sings you a little song. And then when your rice is done, it also sings you a little song. So I want it to be hashtag Zojirushi couture. That's the new life. Hashtag life.
How about hashtag Excel and chill? Spreadsheets, budgets, domestic bliss, new cozy flex. What do we think? No more tradwife.
I hate Excel. So you can have that one. I don't want that one. I know how much you love Excel.
Yeah, David loves it. I'm holding out for a Japanese toilet sponsor. That's what I'm holding
Go
out
sing
for.
you a little song.
How about do less Duchess? Proudly outsourcing everything from laundry to lawn care. What do we think? Do you think that can make up for trad wife? I think so.
To be more trad wife, it'll be even more extreme.
No, the other direction.
It'll be Handmaiden's Tale.
Yeah.
You went from girl boss to soft life to trad wife. Now we got to go back. So we need to go back in another direction. So I'm thinking, how about domestic CEO? Still hustling, but the empire is just your kitchen calendar. No? Allison didn't like
These
that
are
one.
all bad. No, these are very.
Of course they're
because
bad.
why is
They're
it
not-
domestic? Why is it domestic?
Because you're hustling in the kitchen. That's probably more trad wife, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
We could do a crossover with fitness. The kitchen hustle could be a weight loss strategy and a new TikTok push.
we have to sell our Estro Rage Max. So yeah, so that would be an energy supplement, so you're not so exhausted.
Oh, that's a
Yes.
good one. That's a good one.
Okay.
So the other statistic that struck me, we're referencing unpaid work and doctor's appointments and housework, laundry, and all the things that are required to get a house to function. But there's the emotional work that often falls into the hands of the mother, managing the children's emotions, their bad days, and their fears and their anxieties. That does tend to predominantly end up still falling on women. And they're working more hours. They're doing a full-time job. Then they're doing more hours taking care of domestic work. And then they have the emotional burden of taking care of the child. And to me, that feels like a setup for burnout. It feels like it's not, hey, you need to schedule better or you need to prioritize better. It's that this is impossible. And if you try to do these things, you will burn out. And that's such an obvious statement that all I got were nods.
Yeah,
which
you
is
got nods.
which is
Clearly,
which is
yeah,
great
that's-
podcasting, guys. Good podcasting.
Yeah, because that's exactly what we've been talking about for the last hour is everything you just said. So congratulations, Rob.
Yeah.
Allison, can you do your overly...
Did he get the point? Rob, I'm so proud of you. You got it. You're just doing so great, buddy.
All right, you guys
That's
suck.
really good job.
You guys suck. You're both fired.
He figured out why women burn out in the workplace. Yeah, good job.
I wanted to talk about burnout, folks.
We've been talking about burnout.
So the emotional shift is really important. I don't know what it is, but my kids don't tell my husband, their dad, the stuff. It's just a funny thing that happens. I'm like, so what was this? So who did? Oh my gosh, what? Oh, they didn't. No, what are you going to do? Like all of that stuff comes to me. And I was like, why don't you tell your dad? And they're like, I don't know.
I'll tell you exactly why. It's because moms are so much more used to pretending like the terrible stories that children tell you when they're just learning to talk are interesting, and dads are horrible at it. When the kids are like, yeah, and then there was this thing, and then my friend, there was a car, and then there was, and you're like, yeah, dude, I got to go to work. And mom's sitting there like, oh, really? That's great, honey. That's why they tell you this shit, because we're like, yeah.
I put in the hard work.
Yeah, that you put in all the work.
It's the long game. Because now I know what
Yes.
happens in their mid to late teens. So I feel like that was a good investment on my part.
I think so.
The other thing is I just like them. I like their little stories. Like I'm lucky enough that I really like my kids. Unlike you, David.
We actually believe you when you say that. You're really good at it.
Yeah, you're good at it.
Love my kids, but they need to be better storytellers.
Well,
Gotta step it up.
I'm trying to train them. Look, if you want people to listen to you, you got to be interesting.
We're looking for the punchline. My kids are deliciously sarcastic now with really wonderfully dry senses of humor, and I love it. But yeah, they didn't start
God
out that way.
bless your spouse.
I had to really work
I
on
feel
it.
so bad for her. Sometimes my kids will be talking and talking and talking, and I'll hit a certain point where I realize they're still talking and I've completely checked out. And then I have to look at them and say, would you just shut up? I don't, but I think it.
No.
I can't believe you're still talking because how long has it been?
Yeah.
Someone give me a time check.
Yeah. What I don't understand, kiddo, is why there isn't a daddy cola in this hand.
Exactly. Yeah. A man pop. So what I was really trying to strike at was actually the distinction between burnout and a psychiatric condition such as depression or an anxiety disorder, and how so many folks who are experiencing burnout end up seeking treatment in order to prop them up enough that they can continue on with a lifestyle that is what's causing the problem.
Yeah, that is not sustainable.
Exactly. So can someone speak toward the difference between, say, depression and burnout.
So depression is a clinical illness.
Uh-huh.
They are separate things, and they both have definitions.
They do, indeed.
Burnout is a work-related stress syndrome marked by emotional exhaustion, cynicism, and a sense of ineffectiveness, unlike clinical depression or generalized anxiety, which can sometimes be confused. Burnout is specifically tied to chronic job stressors and usually improves with rest or environment changes. Depression can be more pervasive, affecting mood, sleep, self-worth across multiple life areas. Anxiety disorders involve excessive worry, physiological arousal. Generally, burnout is going to be situational and with exhaustion and a reduced capacity at work, whereas depression can kind of arise with or without work stress and often includes deep sadness or hopelessness.
Yes, thank you.
I would say a lot of what I see is that people try so long and are burned out for so long that their burnout then feeds right into a diagnostic clinical depression or anxiety.
Absolutely. So burnout is often associated with cynicism, loss of empathy. And given the roles that moms are asked to play, they're asked to be the empathic one. When they're finding it difficult to be empathic, and with burnout, feeling like you're inadequate, well, it feeds into that. So it's, I can't do this anymore. I'm feeling inadequate. I'm a failure, which feeds in on the cynicism and the lack of empathy. And it can become a cycle. And certainly it can lead to depression. But I think for the average individual, it's important to draw a distinction because a lot of folks are going to end up talking to their primary care doc and saying, I'm depressed. And the primary care doc's going to give them whatever, insert SSRI. And that's not the solution. The solution is really identifying that what you're being tasked with is beyond your capacity, not because you're bad, not because you're a failure, but because it's too much, that there's only so much anyone can carry.
With any of my patients, whenever they want to talk about medications, I'll usually have the conversation of what's going on and what's your expectation for this medication to do. If the reason that you want a medication is that your boss is an asshole, I'll say, well, maybe your boss should take this, but this isn't going to change your boss. That isn't going to change the challenges that you're having at work. To some extent, it may make it more tolerable, depending on what medication we're talking about. But if the issue is that you're really struggling at work, then being aware that a medication is going to make a difficult, challenging work environment better, especially if it's, boss. I think that's important.
I have a feeling if I was on a medicine right now, it would make you more tolerable to me.
Well, drink
depends
more
on
of
what
that
medicine.
horse rider.
Horse soldier.
There you go. Have more horse soldier. It'd be fun. Because I am delightful.
You are delightful. That is the truth. Let's move to prescriptions. How do we resolve this? What are actionable things that people can actually do in their life? What's the prescription here?
I'm going to start. Big one is just going to be pull back online. I know that's going to sound crazy, but following the latest trend as far as girlboss, soft life, trad wife, watching other people's curated lives and wondering why you don't have that curated life, it's silly. It's a huge waste of your time, not taking the time to appreciate the life that you have and the life that you're building and comparing yourself to somebody's perfect image that they are presenting to you is a recipe for failure and disaster. So pulling back from that and not relying upon very commercial entities like social media, because that's what it is. I think a good piece of advice for any technology would be if the cost of the product is $0, you are the product. And just be aware of that. So if that's what you're paying for social media is $0, it's because you're the product. And so whatever it is that they're selling to you, it may not be as healthy for you as you think.
Do you have one, Allison?
So mine actually ties into that really well, I think, because it's essentially the same thing. So one of the things that makes it really difficult to cut back on social media is just how compelling it is. One of the things that helped me pretty significantly cut back is a book by Sarah Wynne Williams. She was with Facebook. It's called Careless People. It's a memoir. She writes it. Essentially, it covers her entire life, which is wild. It starts with a shark attack. If you were...
Holy crap, that must have been one hell of a delivery.
She's Australian.
Of course she is.
Delivered directly into the mouth of a shark.
Yeah, straight into a shark. So that's where it starts. But then she joins up with Facebook and she talks about how she wants to make the world better. And it talks about how long she stayed there, even after she had seen behind the curtain. And she talks about Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, where you just try harder. The answer is, well, just say yes and you'll figure it out. And it turns out that Sarah Wynne Williams said that the answer is you just hire people. Everything's easy when you have an essentially endless supply of income and you just hire people to do all of the things that you don't want to do. You could take a helicopter if you don't have time to get between your houses or whatever. So that was really helpful for me to read in order to cut back. The other thing that I really like is there's a subreddit called Anti-Consumption. And it's really helpful in looking at how much consumer culture is there. And it's really helpful for me too.
It's a really good point there, because there is this intricately woven in element of the consumer culture that plays into all of this, that there's just so many layers to it. So here's my suggestion. Equality is the idea that everyone should have equal opportunities and equal rights. That's equality. What we need to accomplish is equity, fairness, and that's mostly inside the home. And what I'm going to encourage folks to do is stop using a yardstick that comes from Instagram or from Facebook, because it's a false measure. It's a curated life. Any of the trad wives, they have to also tape a evening in their life when they're arguing, when they're being treated poorly, when they have no ability to walk out of the home because they have no financial means now. They have to show the bigger picture, and that's not going to happen. So don't use that yardstick. The yardstick should be established inside your home with your significant other and your children. And it really needs to probably, in general, reel back on expectations and set your key performance measures. Need to be things like, my kids are healthy and doing okay. We can pay the bills. We get food on the table more often than not. So that the measures really have to be reasonable. Probably measures that would have been more reasonable at a whole different time and place in the world. We would have been appreciative of having just enough. And instead now the measuring stick just keeps getting longer.
Yeah. And to build off of what you just said, having open and real discussions with your partner, if you're fortunate enough to have one in this situation, actually talk about what those expectations are, what it is that you want the home life to be like, having an internal picture of how you want things to run, but not sharing that with the other person is another recipe for disaster, where you can start to shoulder a lot of the load, a lot of the burden yourself, and feel like the other person isn't willing to shoulder it, maybe sometimes because the other person isn't aware that that's part of the goal. And so having those discussions of, hey, this is what I'm envisioning this thing to be like.
Ownership.
If you have an internal picture of what you envision the perfect family life to be, but you're not sharing that vision. And this is for both men and women. I guess that's the point, is to have those communication, because as a woman, not sharing it is one thing, but as a man, not to ask is another thing. And so the other side of the coin is to say, have you asked those questions? Because I noticed that you were doing all of this work. Maybe my vision of what our family should look like isn't the same as yours. Let's get on the same page. And so openly having those communications.
There's a website, a card game, a book that's used in couples therapy called Fair Play. And it's actually a deck of cards. Every aspect of home life has been put on a card, and you can go through them. In a heteronormative couple, the man will say, well, why didn't you ask for my help? I would have been glad to help. But it is that ownership. So going through this card deck, or just like figuring out who's doing what, and all of the hidden invisible work that's getting done, that's like, oh, shoot, I thought the water bill paid itself, or those kinds of things.
But if you fall into the trap of trying to assign point values in a system to like, oh, I did this much and I did this much and those are equal, well, that's not really helpful either, to say I did X percentage and therefore you only did whatever percentage, rather than share a vision on what we want this to look like and how we're going to get there. And that's taking the ownership without saying like, well, I take out the trash, so therefore that counts for 3 points. And you are the person who does the PTO meetings, so that counts for 6 points.
But each of you has to know what.
It's important to know what they are,
yeah.
But when it's a zero-sum game, that's not great either. I think where you could say, this is what we are hoping to accomplish together because we're a team. We're not fighting each other. One isn't trying to win and the other one's losing because they got so many points. No, we're trying to have a shared environment.
When ledgers start to be kept,
there we go.
Usually bad things ensue. Right. Ledger keeping is never good in relationships.
But everybody does it. That's the problem. Is like, especially when you're doing it, you're like, well, God damn it, I'm the one on the laundry day. So like,
yeah.
I don't get credit for that.
Right.
But that goes along with not having a shared vision and ownership of,
I like to fold laundry,
what living together in a family looks like.
So I think it's helpful to show people who can't see what work is being done. So that's what I'm talking about, because a lot of this is hidden, invisible work.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're talking to somebody who doesn't understand that work is being done, having a visual aid to help explain how much work is being done is very useful.
Indeed. I'm also going to recommend a Sunday meeting for the work week. Take 20 minutes. Look at the calendar together. What are the kids' needs this week? Who needs picked up when? Who has a doctor's appointment? Whatever, so that there can be shared ownership over it. And, not that one parent should be the predominant or the primary parent. So have that meeting.
Well, and having some flexibility in that, and to say, hey, one person probably shouldn't or can't be responsible for everything in the home. It is a shared living space. We're trying to build a life together, not just trying to coexist. And so actually having that, I think, can be very helpful. But you could use our Shrink the Nation calendar that you can purchase on our website, our Shrink the Nation couples calendar.
And after today, we'll also have a ledger. I will be producing a ledger.
That's right.
I'm going to develop my own point system.
Shrink the Nation Allison ledger for home chores.
Look,
Equity.
those PTO meetings are grueling, you all.
Fine, 6.5.
We'll put it on a
points.
sliding scale. Right. We'll give it a point
Should do
system.
6.5 points.
There's got to be science. There's got to be an Excel spreadsheet we can develop on this.
We're going to use NFL rules, okay? So you get 6 points for the PTO meeting. You get 3 points for taking out the trash. You get 1 point if the trash doesn't get out on the corner on time.
Ooh, a demerit. I love a demerit system.
You
Love
get 2
demerits.
points if the in-laws show up. Once you've gotten 24 points, you get birthday sex.
Like ice cream. Yeah. Tacos. That'd be great.
A big gender difference just was revealed. We know what David's reward was, and we know what Allison's is. So
Tacos and ice cream. Yeah, that sounds great,
tacos.
Allison.
I actually don't like ice cream that much, but tacos, oh yeah.
All right. On the idea of tacos, which I'm going to now go make myself.
Thank you for everyone who stuck around. Thank you so much, Allison, for showing up again. We always love having you on, calling us out on our garbage. I'm sure we'll produce more for you to complain about later. Smash that subscribe button, like, share, write to us, sign up for our newsletter. We're starting to get people who are actually reading it, I think, or at least they're getting it. They're reading it, but they're getting it. And
The stats say they're opening it.
that's it. Until next time, thanks so much, and cue it up, and we're out.